So I recently saw a YouTube short called Terraria Feels. There's Pedro Pascal, he's laughing, he's crying, the Dryad's turning into a tree, and it made me realize I've never actually made a video discussing Terraria's credits before. You see, Relogic added Terraria's credits to give you a little hint at the future of all of the different NPCs once you've finally taken down the Moon Lord. And this short made me wonder, do all of the NPCs actually get happy endings, and does that ending align with the canonical lore we got for Terraria's 8th anniversary? To kickstart things, we first see the guide running away from a zombie that he let inside of his home, and in my headcanon, I personally think the zombie took him out. I mean, it's only time. The guide won't stop opening doors. Now, of course, every NPC that meets its demise in Terraria is respawned on the next day or whenever. Now, I don't want to look at it from that standpoint. I want to try and apply this to the lore that we got for the anniversary. Now, in Terraria's lore, we learn that the guide is part of the Ancient Order of the Guide, the group that's actually passing down all of this lore. And so it's implied that even if the world loses this guide, there will be another guide to replace him. The guide is a pretty special NPC because he will actually reference the fact that there were other guides before him in your world. If you speak to him after killing the Wall of Flesh, he will say that his predecessor suddenly burst into flames. And so, does the guide have a good or a bad ending? Well, I'm going to put this one in neutral because even though he's likely met his demise, he will be replaced. Next up, we see the merchant and the traveling merchant strike up and agree on a deal between a dirt block and an angel statue. Now, of course, this doesn't align with any grand lore, but it does align with a dialogue option from the merchant that says he doesn't want to buy an angel statue because he thinks that it's junk. Now, I don't know if the merchant had insider knowledge on the fact that the angel statue would become useful a couple of years later, or he's finally just ready to strike up a deal. And the fact he offers a dirt block is great because, as he mentions, a dirt block sells for a lot overseas. For this one, I'm saying it's a good ending. And in the true spirit of the merchant, let's strike up a deal, alright? You subscribe to the channel and I will provide you with good Terraria videos. And maybe also dirt. Next up, we see the demolitionist and the arms dealer having an argument before the nurse comes along and takes them both for a drink. Now, it is referenced that the demolitionist and the arms dealer actually don't like each other and they'll try and compete. So the fact that the nurse is taking them both for a drink, I will say everybody here gets a good ending. Next up, we have the Goblin Tinkerer and the mechanic falling in love, which is a genuinely sweet ending for both characters. It's especially nice in regards to the lore, because as we know, the mechanic was held prisoner and forced to rebuild parts of Cthulhu's body. The player comes along, frees the mechanic, and now that the mechanic is free, she can fall in love with the Goblin Tinkerer. It's a wholesome story. What's also great is the shimmer variants of both of these NPCs show them both as the same race as little green goblins, and I really like that. So this one, of course, is a good ending. Next up, we see the Tavern Keep reminiscing with the Dryad before heading back in a portal to Dungeon Defenders 2. It's been a long time since the announcement of 1.4.3, but if you did miss it, we saw a portal open up inside of Dungeon Defenders and all of the creatures walked through. It was one of those creatures, the ogre in fact, that actually sent the Dryad to Dungeon Defenders 2, and we never really saw how she came back to Terraria. But it's great to see they've bookended this crossover by showing how the Tavern Keeper returned. And so for the Tavern Keep, I would say good ending. Real quick, I wanted to let you all know that my affiliate code Chippy has now been restored on Terraria.shop. So if you want to pick up any official Terraria merchandise, use code Chippy and you'll save 15%. And because it's an affiliate code, you'll also be supporting the channel. Not too much to say about this next one. The painter, the wizard, the die keeper, and the party girl all go for Cake. Cake's great, good ending. Next up, we have the Truffle NPC looking very concerned and walking away as the Clothier slowly approaches, chuckling to himself. And why? Well, it's because the Clothier is on his way to eat the truffle. Yeah, I'm sorry to break the news to you, but it turns out through various dialogues that the Clothier has a bit of an obsession with the Truffle NPC and has even been seen gnawing on his foot as he sleeps. So in my headcanon, I personally think the Clothier went all the way, and if he didn't, he's behind bars. Now, listen, I know my whole branding is the Clothier, but this is the way that Relogic set it up. I'm very sorry for the Truffle NPC. So I'm going to chalk this up as a bad ending for both characters, because either way, I don't see this ending nicely. Up next, we have the angler and the pirate captain on a beach showing each other various wares they found while fishing. until the angler shows the pirate captain a truffle worm before leaving the scene. The pirate captain chases down the angler to let him know of his concern, and we don't really know what happens after here. Now, depending on how much you like the angler, you could personally see this going either way, so I'll put this one in neutral. It's not quite bad, but it's also not great. Next up, we have the zoologist and her younger brother, the golfer, chasing down a golf ball with a bunch of town NPCs. But what's interesting is the zoologist no longer has her ears, and it was confirmed by Line 4's that's because she's now cured of whatever curse that she had. What's also interesting is the Shimmer variant of the golfer actually has that curse as well. So were they bitten separately, or is this like a family thing? I don't know, but this is a pretty nice ending. Next up, we have the skeleton merchant rumbling through a pile of bones and obtaining a slap hand, and it's great to learn how he finally comes about these items that he sells. I would say good ending because he's just made a profit. Now let's talk about the ending for the Dryad, the very one that inspired this video. As we can see, the Dryad simmers down and turns into a tree. So is this a good ending for the Dryad or not? Well, let's look at the game's lore. So we learned in the game's lore that once Cthulhu arises, the ancient race of Dryads arose to wage battle against Cthulhu. The Dryads, with their unparalleled connection to the planet, were Terraria's truly last hope as they joined together to save all lifeform annihilation. The Dryads were alas unable to kill Cthulhu. However, with the Dryads' combined power, they were able to cripple Cthulhu's ability to wreak further damage on Terraria by ripping out Cthulhu's eyes, part of its skeleton, and chunks of its brain. Ultimately, the substantial damage forced Cthulhu to retreat to the dark side of the moon, where it dwells to this day, gathering strength for another attempt at total conquest. As for the Dryads, sadly all but a single member perished, and the sole survivor has not been seen for many, many years. And so it turns out that the Dryad that we have in our world is the sole survivor of an ancient race, and it's not until the Moon Lord has been defeated that she can finally be at peace and turn into a tree. Now, I did try and research people's interpretation of the Dryad turning into a tree, and it seems a little mixed. Some people believe that when she turned into a tree, she passed on and there she shall remain at peace, but others believe that the Dryad began life as a tree and didn't get her human form until the battle began, and so now that the battle is over, she can turn back into her true form. The Dryad, unfortunately, has a pretty rough backstory, and so any ending is kind of bittersweet, but it's nice to know that as the last of her race, she was successful in taking down Cthulhu. Well, in a way. I mean, I needed that +8 defense, and she did supply it. So even though it's bittersweet and it does hit you in the feels, I would say she gets a pretty nice ending. Up next, we see the steampunker attempting a repair on the cyborg. And if you didn't know, it was actually the mechanic and the steampunker that created the cyborg in the first place. Now, I don't know how these repairs panned out, but I'll just say good ending. Next up, we see Santa Claus present the tax collector with a present. Now, since the tax collector is based off of Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol, I would say he gets a pretty good ending. And finally, we see the princess and the witch doctor befriending two lizards. For those that don't know, the Witch Doctor is in fact a lizard himself, and it's said that the Witch Doctor likes the princess because she is kind to his race, which we see here. Also, though, the princess did say that at one point she petted a lizard, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come, with the lizards being embraced by the other NPCs. Hopefully they can all live in harmony, and I'll say good ending. And that's it. Do you have any of your own personal theories about NPCs in Terraria? And what do you think about the clothier in the truffle? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.